The rain was coming down hard that evening, and the wind pushed against the empty highway, like it wanted every traveler to turn back. Jane Lane sat behind the wheel of her car, squinting through the windshield as the wipers struggled to keep up with the storm. The radio was talking about strong winds and heavy rain across the region, but Jane had stopped listening a long time ago. Her mind was somewhere else entirely. She was on her way back to Hope Junction, the small town where she had grown up. She hadn't been back properly in years. Life in the city had kept her busy, and honestly, she had preferred it that way. But Thanksgiving had a strange way of pulling people back home whether they wanted to go or not. The road ahead was almost empty. For miles she had seen nothing but the occasional road sign and the blur of rain. Then suddenly she noticed a car pulled over to the side of the road. A man stood beside it, waving slightly as her headlights approached. Jane slowed down, but she didn't stop immediately. Helping a stranger on a dark road in the middle of a storm wasn't exactly the smartest thing to do. Still, something about the situation made her hesitate. She rolled down her window just a little. "Do you need help?" she asked cautiously. The man stepped closer, rain dripping from his hair. "Hey, thanks for stopping," he said. "My car broke down." Jane studied him carefully. "Just so we are clear," she said, holding up a small spray can, "I have pepper spray." He raised his hands slightly in surrender. "Good to know. Is that the spiky medieval weapon kind or the stay away from strangers kind?" Jane couldn't help letting out a small laugh. "The second one." He explained that his car had started sputtering a few miles back before finally dying completely. His phone was dead, and he hadn't been able to call anyone. Jane sighed and handed him her phone. "Call a tow truck." He dialed quickly and gave the location. After a few minutes he hung up. "They'll come eventually," he said. "Where are you headed?" Jane asked. "Hope Junction." Jane raised her eyebrows. "No way." "Conference there," he said. Jane hesitated, then shrugged. "Well, I'm going there too. You can ride with me." He smiled. "That would be amazing." They drove the rest of the way together. The storm grew worse, but somehow the silence in the car felt comfortable rather than awkward. They chatted a little about old cars, small towns, and how strange it was to travel alone during the holidays. Eventually they reached the center of Hope Junction. It looked exactly the same as Jane remembered. The same quiet streets, the same little shops, the same warm yellow lights glowing from windows. Jane pulled into the parking lot of the Bumblebee Inn, the small hotel in the middle of town. Inside, the receptionist greeted them cheerfully. "Reservation under your name or your boyfriend's?" Jane nearly choked. "He's not my boyfriend." "Oh, your fiancé then?" "No, your husband." "We just met," Jane said quickly. The woman blinked. "Oh." They ended up booking 2 separate rooms. Unfortunately, they were right next to each other. Jane sighed when she realized. Of course. That night Jane lay awake for a while thinking about the strange man she had met. There was something oddly familiar about him, though she couldn't quite place why. The next morning she went to her parents' house for breakfast. Her mother greeted her with a huge hug, and her father started talking excitedly about a radio. Said he had bought at a flea market. Everything in the house felt exactly the same as it had when Jane was younger. Then her brother Greg arrived. He immediately began bragging about his upcoming wedding. Jane blinked. "You're getting married." "You didn't know," he said casually. Jane forced a smile. Her mother quickly changed the subject. "The Thanksgiving bake-off is tomorrow," she said happily. The whole town always participated in the annual baking competition. "You'll need a partner," her mum added. Without thinking, Jane said, "I already have one." The words came out before she realized what she had done. Later that evening, Greg mentioned that he had run into an old friend in town and invited him over. When the door opened and Jane saw who walked in, she froze. "You." The man stared back at her. "You." It was the same man she had picked up on the highway, Chris Lilyhammer. And suddenly Jane remembered exactly why he had seemed familiar. 20 years ago, in primary school, Chris had humiliated her during the science Fair by dumping fruit punch all over her. The entire school had laughed, and for years afterwards everyone had called her Pinky Lane. Jane crossed her arms. You betrayed me for a joke. Chris rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. I was 10. Later that night they ran into each other again at the hotel vending machine. After arguing for a while, they realized something funny. Jane's parents were already trying to set her up with someone. The whole town was gossiping about her being single. Chris suddenly grinned. What if we just pretend we are dating? Jane stared at him. Pretend. Just for the holiday. It'll stop everyone from trying to matchmake you. Jane thought about it. Then she sighed. Fine. The next morning they arrived together at a family brunch. Everyone was thrilled. Chris played the role perfectly, telling a ridiculous story about falling in love with Jane when they were children. Jane couldn't believe how convincing he sounded. Over the next few days they spent more time together. They practiced baking for the town competition, walked through the little streets of Hope Junction, and shared long conversations late at night. Somewhere along the way, something changed. What had started as a fake relationship began to feel real. One evening Chris finally admitted the truth. I've always liked you, he said quietly. Jane was stunned. You're serious? Completely. For the first time, she began to believe him. But the next day, everything went wrong. Chris didn't show up for the baking competition. Jane stood there alone in front of the entire town while people whispered and stared. Her brother mocked her. Humiliated, she ran out. That evening Chris came to her hotel room. I can explain, he said. You embarrassed me again, Jane replied. Chris admitted he had been at a job interview all morning. He had lost his job months earlier and had been too embarrassed to tell anyone. Jane felt a little sorry for him, but the pain was still there. I need someone who actually shows up, she said. Later that night Jane received a phone call. Her brother had fallen off the roof while cleaning leaves. Panicking, she tried to find a taxi. Chris appeared beside her. I'll drive. At the hospital they discovered Greg would be fine. Just a broken wrist and a mild concussion. Lying in the hospital bed, Greg sighed. I've been kind of a jerk to you. Jane laughed softly. That's the nicest thing you've ever said. Later that evening the whole family gathered for Thanksgiving dinner. Chris sat quietly beside Jane. Her mother leaned toward her. I like him, she whispered. Jane smiled slightly. So do I. Chris glanced at her. Still don't trust me? He asked. Jane shrugged. Working on it. He smiled. That's enough for now. Outside, the first snow of the season began falling gently over Hope Junction. Jane looked around the table at her family, her friend who had flown in to surprise her, and the man sitting beside her. Her car breaking down on that stormy road had changed everything. Before we continue with the story, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Your support really helps the channel.